Hello everyone and welcome to Diamonds of Craft, where I make things. My name is Sarah. I'm back with another video, finally. I do apologise for being away for so long. I had a bit of burnout at the end of last year and I'm still kind of recovering from it. There was a lot of requests for this character in Alistair's video, and ask and you shall receive. I did want to make him for a long time, so let's get into it. I am using this Heath doll because for the Hazbin Hotel characters, this style of doll is pretty perfect. Though this time I'm not going to carve his face up like I did with Alistair. I am actually attempting to 3D model and print this face. Yikes. Now I am brand new to 3D modeling. I'm a 3D modeling baby. So I'm very aware that what I'm doing is not optimal. In all honesty, I was just messing around with Blender to see what I could do with it and ended up really liking it. That is why I have only really recorded making the teeth, which was arguably the worst part because I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's fine because now I have an excuse to use my Elegoo 3D printer. I think it turned out really well, even if the execution was a bit wobbly. There is more than one way to skin a cat, and I suppose this one is the messiest. But the job was complete, and look! I am super happy with how this came out, and it looks even better primed. The only thing I did change was the eye sockets. The first ones were a little bit small to draw on, so I opened those up. I guess I can curse my need to be super detailed, it was just a bit hard to draw on, so I opened that up and it makes his expression a little bigger. The idea this time was to just make a faceplate and chop off poor Heath's existing face. I have tried to sculpt a brand new head once before for my Hag Raven, and it went really well, except for the range of motion. This time I thought I'll use the existing vinyl and just replace the face. It's not without its problems, but never mind. I mark where I think the face will sit, cut a notch out for his neck, and job's good. I cut this a few times before it fit properly, but it ended up okay. I also need to chop him down so that we can make our Lucifer into the short king he is. He is a short king. So cute. Using Alistair for size reference, I measured to see realistically how much I could shave off without the proportions looking weird. I'm cutting off the points of the legs I can get away with and hot gluing them back together. Not the most elegant of solutions, but it works for now. I then covered the adjustments with Milliput and tried to blend everything together. And I do the same for his face as well. His legs are great, but he's still a little too tall, so some of his torso is getting removed. I just casually saw the bit off that I don't want and hot glue him back together. I also add claw nails to his hands, and that's all I need to do for the body mods. Now we can start on his face. I want my Lucifer. Okay. I want my Lucifer to be looking off to the side in what I'd consider to be a signature look. It also means that he and Alistair can be side-eyeing each other for the rest of time, so it all works out. I will address the fact that I've added a nose. A couple of people on Instagram guessed that I was making Alistair, but since I already have, I'm not redoing him. I like the art style of Hazbin Hotel, but I do wonder why some characters have noses and some don't. I mean, it's not really a problem, I don't notice it when I'm watching it, but I want him to fit with Alistair and be more my style, and that includes giving him a nose. Rather than being true to the actual character design, it is purely personal preference. I do think if I made more characters who don't have noses in the show, that I would give them a nose. I also cannot believe how many times I've just said nose in such a short space of time. It is difficult to get the eyes on a smiling face right, and this was no exception. I am pleased with how they turned out, though using pencils on a 3D printed face was a whole new experience. I did find myself having to use water with my pencils more often than not to get a smoother finish. It is okay to draw on, but to make it look smoother, that was a necessary step. Filling in the gums and between his teeth was an experience. And to be fair, it was with Alistair as well. I just have to make sure I'm being as neat as possible with it. One of the great things about him having a pure white face was the ability to just use white paint to cover up any mistakes or accidental smudges. I did struggle with this face a little, only in the sense of trying to give it more depth. I haven't gone into great depth with it. I won't lie, when I'm happy with something, I am afraid to mess it up in some way by overworking it. And with doll faces, it's not as easy as, oh, I'll just take that tiny bit off and do it again. It's why spraying MSC when you know you're happy is a must. So I added in a lot of colours in the eyes and a lot of white highlights to make things stand out. And I honestly think it gives a whole different vibe to Alistair, but that might just be me. I gave him some tiny eyelashes to finish it all off, and I can call his face complete. The body didn't have to be painted at all in reality. He is basically covered from head to toe with clothes, so there was no real need. Saying that, I was worried about his forearm showing at some point, so I did paint those black along with his hands. I could then move on to the arduous task of making hair out of yarn. Hair in any form is just a time sink, but I couldn't reroute him as his face is made of resin. So I have to make the wefts and glue them on. Before I do that, I sit and unravel little bits of yarn to save some time when I brush it. As you can see, it's an enjoyable experience all around. This is absolutely not sped up to 2000 times speed. Yikes! Anywho, I can start gluing. His hair is mostly covered by a hat, but it is slicked back and comes to a point behind his head. I glue the bottom wefts on so that they point upwards, and I will glue the top ones on the opposite way so they meet in the middle. Hair is one of the things I want to avoid because it's pretty scary, and so it ends up looking a little bit like Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Picture Show for a long time. I go back and finish styling it much later on. So instead of his hair, I will start on the other thing that takes me an age to make, and that is the clothes. I started on his coat. I figured that would be the most time consuming for me. Thankfully, I had the pattern I made from Alistair's coat, and it's mostly the same. Except Lucifer has the little butt flaps at the back, and it doesn't have to fasten in the front. Hey, they're like little butt flaps. I don't know what they're called. I made a little test one out of cotton, and I do end up using it to back the nice silk that I wanted to make the coat out of, as that was a little bit see-through. I use hemming tape to stick the pieces together, and then I can cut the pieces out, and they're pretty solid. I also use the tape to stick on the ribbon for the edging of the lapels. It's nicer than using glue because it just disappears in the heat, but if it's not cut right, it does stick to the iron. Though it's so much less mess and super neat in the end. I do the same for the collar piece, which I'm sure needed to be attached to the lapels in a nicer way, but that's beyond my sewing comprehension. There are just some things that will remain a mystery. I also know he doesn't need sleeves underneath his coat. It's an absolute pain to have that under his coat, so he's going sleeveless. He doesn't get a shirt either, and I was really not feeling having to make something for the vest to go over, so I only make a collar piece that's stuck to the rest of him. Looks like a little crop top. Very cute. I did print the vest out using the printer freezer paper method, for ease mostly, and it's cheaper. I also didn't worry too much about the back of this, as no one will ever see it. Ever. I made his boots the exact same way that I made Kaya's boots, with glue and a dream. I just cut the soles and the uppers and glued them straight on. The soles are just card paper on the inside and a couple of layers of foam on the outside. Paint them black and cover the ugly bits with ribbon, and then they're done. To have his coat stay put, I use this fun little tab gun to add the tabs in. Lemon Kitten got me that as a gift, and I was really pleased to be able to use it. As some finishing touches for his outfit, we can't forget the embellishments on his coat. I have gold chain hanging around from ages ago, and all I need to do is measure them out and glue them on. Then I can glue some gold buttons I'd made from leftover Milliput when I was making his claws. And all that's left is his little dicky bow, and the outfit is done. Well, do we count hands? I suppose we do. I start off by cutting the brim out of foam and covering it with this silky material. Sadly, I didn't have any more of the same material as his clothes, but that's alright. Glue is my friend here. I did do an attempt at sewing the brim to the underside, and it just looked a bit bad. It wasn't what I was really going for, so gluing was the next best thing. I made this hat many, many times. I just couldn't get the proportions right. His head is bigger than it should be because dull, so I think that's why. One thing I did add was a little bit of wire into the brim so I could pose it just right. And this was the absolute last hat I was going to make, right or wrong. I wasn't going to do another. And then I needed to move on to the accessories for his hat and his apple cane. I made the apples for his cane out of Milliput. There's no reason for this. I could have easily made them out of polymer clay, I just didn't. I made the crown and snake part out of polymer clay, cos clay to be exact, as the snakes needed to be moved around to get onto his hat. I am still using the base layer of pink for that nice warm gold look I learned from Catmillion. I can then cover the pieces with gold chrome, which I didn't film, sadly. I paint the apples red, then give them a nice covering with the nail top coat, which actually has a lot of that gold chrome in it because I am not neat. It's a nice way of getting a shine to something because I don't have to wait for it to dry. Shiny. The last thing to do for his cane is to paint the rest black. I can then assemble the gold crown and snakes onto his hat and add the apple, and then his hat is done. I didn't forget about giving a little bow tie to one of these ducks, though I did forget to give him a little hat. Never mind. I am always avoiding doing the hair in one way or another, but I can't avoid it anymore. I had to add the little light streak in the front and build a widow's peak. I am sorry I didn't film much of the hair process. This one stressed me out a little. But with that all out of the way, he's finished. And here he is, all finished. I hope you guys love him. I know I did take a little bit of a risk doing a completely 3D modeled and printed face on him, but I think it worked out really, really good. I like it. I like how he turned out. His hat, jury's still out on that one, to be honest. Leave a comment down below if you liked him, consider subscribing and ringing my bell. But if you do these things, don't be a dick. Just don't. There's no need for it. Lucifer doesn't like it. He likes ducks. Thanks for sticking with me if you have for all of these months that I haven't posted. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Looks like he's just at me. Oh, stop.